to thinking is contagious. Christmas week, and a lot of things going on, a lot of activity. Hopefully everyone's in good health and healthy and gets to enjoy this great holiday, which Christmas is. Couple of things. I don't know if you've seen the California Governor Newsom, part of a recall petition. They're pushing 1 million signatures on this thing, and it's being signed by Republicans, by Democrats, across the board. It's not just, the conservatives that want to get rid of this guy. Everybody wants to get rid of this guy, and this guy is going to be, he's being exposed for what he is. It's absurd. When you hear him talk and you see him, he's always looks like he's ready for a photo shoot. And you could tell this guy's completely superficial, empty. There's nothing there. He has no clue what he's doing. And he has been a disaster for California. I mean, it's mass exodus out of California. The ramifications are going to be felt and are being felt. And it's not just high profile like Tesla leaving, and it's just the population, the general population, the exodus out of that state. And the message that you're seeing is the amount of congressional seats that the Republicans were able to gain in California alone. There's a shift going on out there. People are beginning to realize that what these liberals are preaching is a bunch of BS. So that's a positive thing. Couple that with the revolts that you're seeing in New York City and other cities about the restaurant owners and what they're being forced to endure with these forced shutdowns. Absurd. No indoor dining, and in the middle of a nor'easter that drops 3 feet of snow in upstate New York, and they're telling them, oh, you can do outdoor dining. It's just, they're clueless. They're clueless, these politicians. And you know what? None of them get a paycheck interruption. They keep getting paid. And, it's easy to say, let's shut down, but as long as they don't get impacted. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's something that's being forced on people by people who, there is no ramification. There is no accounting for their actions because they don't feel it. To them, life goes on. It doesn't matter if restaurants are shut down. They don't care. And they go to restaurants anyway. They do whatever the hell they want. So, along those lines, I'm not a big proponent of bailing people out and giving away money. But I will tell you this, and I'm very familiar with it from my real estate business, is that there's absolutely no difference. And I do think people are owed restitution, business owners, for these forced shutdowns. I think that they have to be paid for it. This is no different than a government taking, condemnation, eminent domain. If you're familiar with those terms, government in many cases, in order to expand roads, do road work, put in bus stations, alter traffic flows, traffic patterns, they'll come in and they'll seize property, widen roads. They'll seize properties from business owners, property owners, and they are forced to have to go to court and pay these owners fair value for that land that they're taking. And not only the business owner, not only the property owners, but the business owners, if they're not the same, and even if they are the same, there's also a component for loss of business interruption. Some businesses can't continue operating. They lose their parking fields, let's say, because of a taking or a condemnation. The state is forced, or the federal government, it's a federal project, is forced to pay these owners for this property. Well, guess what? This is the same thing. These forced shutdowns, it should not have to be these PPEs and these programs to reimburse or to pay people. This should be based on these condemnation and eminent domain laws. People are having their assets taken from them. And to force someone to shut down their business is absolutely no different than what we've talked about up to this point. And I think that there has to be an accountability, and there has to be a cost to this, these people are owed restitution. So it's absolutely no different. Um, I think you're also seeing a big shift in the Democratic Party, and I think that they are in trouble. It's a party divided. I think the handwriting is on the wall. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for the Democrats as a party to win another election. They have destroyed. They have lost all of their reputation. People are sick of their lies. People are sick of their actions, their mandates. They're forcing these shutdowns, taking away the freedom of speech. I think people are pretty fed up, and I think you listen to polls about this election, and there's people who don't want to talk about the election, but 75% of Republicans think that this election was a fraud. Even as high as 30% of Democrats think that there was voter fraud in this election. You can't deny the fact that there are many irregularities in this election. There's many things that have gone different in this election, from the mail-in voting and the lack of accountability when it comes to verifying votes, signatures, IDs, all these things. We keep talking about this. I have no doubt that there was voter fraud. I have no doubt that Trump won this election. And I think the American people are pretty fed up with this. And I think that they are going to see that the Democratic Party stands for nothing but themselves. And you're never going to get support in this country. Not never, but in the foreseeable future, you're never going to get support in this country for an AOC or a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren on a mass scale, because America doesn't want socialism. America doesn't want anything but a capitalist society. And this division that's occurring within the Democratic Party between the centrist and the somewhat liberal from the far progressive left, it's going to cause a rift in this party that's going to take a long time to mend and morph into a hybrid party where the direction becomes unified again. So I think they're in for a rough time. I was also watching some of the result or the projections, the polls regarding Georgia, the Senate runoff, and it's tight, but it looks like the Republicans, Loeffler and Perdue, are holding slight edges. It seems like Perdue-Ossoff race is a little tighter. The Loeffler one, she looks like she's pretty much in control, it looks like. So it's looking good. But I'll tell you what's interesting is Trafalgar polling, which has been very accurate. They're the ones who predicted Trump's victory in 2016, and they predicted Trump victory this year. And as we've discussed, I think they were right. It was a Trump victory, but obviously it was cooked. But talking about the cooked, I heard the president, the founder, the CEO, whatever he is, of Trafalgar on television, and he was predicting the Georgia Senate runoffs as both Republicans having their leads, like we discussed. And they questioned, well, you also predicted Trump would win. So he said, yeah, well, we can only predict the the votes that can be accounted for. We have no control over the other votes. But interesting enough, this is what got me thinking. He said that what they've done in Georgia is inputted a 3.7% factor for this cheating. So when you see now the results from Trafalgar that has the Republicans ahead, they've actually put into their data a 3.7 fraud factor, a fraud factor into the United States into a United States election. That's where we've gotten to. You know, it's interesting because I read an article, and I don't remember now. I can't quote the article or who wrote it or what, but it was pretty interesting. And what they said was based on what happened, because they were talking about in 2004, Kerry and Bush, that there was a similar claim from the Democratic side that the election had been rigged by the Republicans. And there was a lot of data, and this individual did a lot of the research that you're seeing done today about the votes, the spikes, the frequencies, the numbers, just these charts indicating these strange fluctuations in vote counting and things. This was back in '04, and this individual was a pro-Kerry guy, and he was saying that the Republicans stole the election. You know, it sounded exactly the same, but he made a very interesting quote, which I'm not word for word, it's verbatim, but he says that basically if the American democracy is a wild animal, let's consider it an animal. What we have today is a taxidermy of that animal. So in other words, the republic, the democratic republic that we are free elections being the animal, living, breathing animal. What we have today is a taxidermy of that animal. Taxidermy being basically dead and stuffed, appearing physically like the animal, but all it is just the shell of the animal. And I think that that's so apropos. I think that that is so on the money. And I think that that is so telling, and it's sad, and it's interesting at the same time, but it's so telling. And I think that's exactly what you have here. This country, they went so far, the Democrats, to rig this thing because they had to, because Trump won by so much that what they had to do, the rigging had to be absurd. In the past, the rigging could be kept close. It was easier to hide. This was so absurd. In order for them to win, they had to shut down counting. They had to send people home. They had to stuff ballots, 300,000 vote spikes overnight for Biden. What they did was so over the top to be able to win that they left themselves vulnerable. And speaking about vulnerable, the Biden, the Hunter Biden, the Joe Biden, the Jim Biden, the Jill Biden, the investigation into their China corruption is out of control. It's being actually followed by even the inane, senseless talking heads at CNN and MSNBC. And you know, like we've discussed before, the reason that that's getting any traction is because it fits the narrative of getting rid of Biden and bringing in the praying mantis, Kamala Harris, to run the show. So this is the Democrats' attempt to really implement that progressive left agenda, socialist agenda, and it's American people are not going to put up with it. It's going to be, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. This is backfiring on them in a massive way. Now, I'm going to get to the COVID, the vaccine. Thankfully, through Operation Warp Speed, President Trump brought forth several vaccines in less than a year's time. The fraud Fauci said it couldn't be done. All the critics criticized him and made fun of him, saying it was impossible. It would take a miracle. Jesus would have to come to earth with a vaccine. You know, those kind of things. Well, there's several vaccines, and to the ire of the left, and Trump will go down in history. What he has done with Operation Warp Speed, no other president could have done. This is an incredible accomplishment. The left can never eradicate this accomplishment. They can never downplay this accomplishment. This is historic. And this will only be one of the many feathers in the cap of probably the greatest president that we've had in this country since maybe Abraham Lincoln. But what I want to get to is the hypocrisy now of the left, the ugliness, the hatred, the racism that the left is exhibiting on this vaccine. The CDC says the most effective use of the vaccine, because obviously, you need to get the dosages that are available immediately into the people who they will prove most effective. And the CDC said the most effective use of the amount of dosages, the initial round of dosages, is for frontline healthcare workers and the elderly. That's what the CDC says. Remember, this is the left that's always science, science, science. We have to go with the science. Trump doesn't follow the science. Well, that's what the science tells you. But guess what the left is saying? They're saying that it's racist for include the elderly because it adversely affects the people, the brown and the black people, the people of color. And listen to some of these things that we're reading based on the fact that liberals basically want to distribute based on race. Racial and ethnic minority. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooley says racial and ethnic minority groups are underrepresented in the elderly, and therefore it's not fair that the elderly be given priority. That's right. That's a Dr. Kathleen Dooley who's involved in is from a far left view and very involved in opinions that regard how this vaccine should be distributed. There's a Dr. Harold Schmidt who says that it's unfair because older populations are mostly white because they have had the advantage of better care and health care and taking care of themselves, and therefore it's unfair to include the elderly in the first round of vaccines. A criteria being the elderly. It's got to be more race oriented. Dr. Mark Lipstitch, teachers, when they're saying frontline workers, teachers are considered frontline workers. He's saying teachers should not be priority. Teachers are middle class. They're white and they have college degrees. Therefore, they should not be on the front line. People, Governor Newsom, the aforementioned joke Governor Newsom, says they need to level the playing field. He made a speech. We need to level the playing field by putting brown and blacks as a priority. Race-based vaccine deployment. This is what the party of slavery, which is the Democrats, are telling you. The party that needs, the party of racism. They need racism to exist in order for them to exist. They need to push the narrative of racism in order for them to have jobs. They need to push the narrative of racism in order to create division and dissension and get people to believe that they are needed to help get them through these injustices. That's what the Democratic Party is. That's who they are. That's who they've been for the last 60 years and way before. But in the last 60 years, they've taken this stance that they are the defenders of the oppressed when they are, in fact, the creators, the enablers of oppression. Um, but I'm going to go a different route. Remember with Kamala Harris when they asked her about will you take the vaccine when Trump before the election, and she said I don't trust him. No, I'm not going to take anything that comes that he tells me to take. That seemed to be pretty much the narrative. Everyone was saying how Cuomo, we're going to start our own investigation into the vaccine before we allow it to be used. That was the left. All of a sudden now they're all on TV getting shots after the election, saying you should all get shots, you should all get the injection, you should all get treated, right? And they're also then telling you that they want the race to be a criteria for giving out these shots. So, if you're white, you fall further, you fall lower in the pecking order. Forget about even if you're old and white, or even if you're white, old, and have comorbidities. It doesn't matter, because race is their criteria, one of their criterias, and one of probably their leading criteria at this point. That begs me to ask the question, if you were saying a month ago that the vaccine you didn't trust it, it wasn't safe, and now all of a sudden you want people of color to be put at the top of the pecking order for the vaccine, are you making people of color your guinea pigs? Your test guinea pigs to see if it works? Because that's what I can interpret this to mean. And yes, I know there's some of you out there saying, oh, look at this guy's a racist. No, I'm not the racist. Believe me. Far from it. I'm complete opposite of that. What I am is a person that believes in honesty and accountability. And I am going up against a group of people in the Democratic Party, the left, the progressives, who are a bunch of lying phonies, self-serving, and who could care less about you, me, or anyone else. And this is a perfect example. If they were so worried about the vaccine November 2nd, they didn't trust Trump, they didn't trust the vaccine, and now today they're saying that people of color should be pushed to the top of the list to get the vaccine first, what does that boil down to? What does that boil down to? To create a crisis in case that there is a problem with the vaccine? And be able to say what? That Trump's great vaccines were aimed at hurting minorities. That's the narrative that you're going to see. Any collateral damage is acceptable to further the agenda of the left. And this is proof. Let me add a few other things. The situation that we're facing at this point with the January 6th and what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen January 6th. I pray that Trump's legal team is hard at work looking to find that smoking gun that can give the legislature the courage, the leverage to say no. We're not we're not accepting the electoral votes in the way that they've been posted at this point. Here is a problem. This is national security. And let me tell you, the Biden-China connection, don't overlook it. Don't overlook it, because that is huge. This guy is corrupt. His son is corrupt. His family is corrupt. The connections to China are there. You saw this Sarnoff guy. How this guy is not removed from the committee, the security committee of this country, how he's not removed, how Pelosi's still sticking up. This is incredible. And the only reason that it is allowed is because it's the left, it's the liberals, it's the Democrats who think that they can get away and dupe the people. As we started at the beginning of this program, people are not accepting of being duped anymore. People are getting sick of this. They're getting sick of violence, of defund the police, of the rioting, of the racism of the Democrats. The Democrats, let me say this very clearly. The Democrats and the liberals and the progressives are the most racist people in America. Racist people in America. Absolutely. Because they need it. They need there to be racism. And there's not. This is one of the least racist countries in the world, if not the least racist country in the world. And the proof of that is the GDP of blacks in America. This is the highest GDP of blacks anywhere in the world are the American blacks. The wealth of people of color in America is higher than anywhere else in the world. Home ownership, the highest of anywhere else in the world. This is the country where people, minorities, people of color, people of different races, religions, and creeds come to succeed, and those who want to succeed, succeed. They may not be the top 1%. They may not be billionaires. They may not be millionaires, but they're going to live a good, comfortable life if they work in the system, dedicate their time to it, and keep the American spirit, in place. Work hard, play hard, love your family, keep it intact, and you will be fine. This is the country of opportunity. And the fact that all indicators prove that and show that is what makes the left irate and hell-bent on trying to defeat the narrative by creating civil strife, unrest, by promoting violence, by promoting rioting, looting, and pillaging, and by making the false claim to people, you are oppressed, you are being taken advantage of. Come to me, come to us, we will fix it for you. Well, guess what? They've been saying they're going to fix it. How long? How long have they been saying they're going to fix it? And they haven't done squat. You know why? Because there's nothing to fix. There's nothing to fix. That's why they haven't done squat. There's nothing to fix, and what they need to do is fabricate an issue. Create an issue, take little instances of it, little snippets of it, and play it up like it's common day, everywhere, constantly occurring. It's like this thing about, oh, I have to give my kids a speech because if they get stopped by the police due to their race, due to their color, it's not the same. Bullshit. Bullshit. Okay? Treat police with respect. There may be some police officers that are dirtbags, that are worthless. Yeah, you know what? Yes, officer, yes, officer. Put up with their BS, get their tag number, get their name, and then report them. Period. Like everyone else would do. Now, when you decide you want to take actions into your own hands or make a whole group accountable for the actions of one or two idiots, then things happen. And things that should never happen, happen. And it's an accountability that needs to occur. It's being the adult in the room that needs to occur. And it is, America is not in the situation that the left wants you to believe it's in. Far from it. Far from it. America's in a great situation. And the left feels like they're losing control. And without that control, they know that they're out of a job. So let's keep pushing. Let's keep saying enough No more of this. January 6th is a long shot. I understand that. But I see the forest. And I see the fact that based on what I'm reading, the tea leaves, the midterms in 22, the Republicans are going to get swamped. If this keeps going the way it is, they may even lose. They may even lose California. This is going to be a turning point. I think we give them enough rope. Give the left, give the progressives enough rope, and they'll hang themselves. They're in the process of doing it right now. Thank you, and have a good day.